This is the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, a show for high-achieving ADHD entrepreneurs. Together, we will inform and educate you about how to improve your self-awareness while developing systems, routines, and habits for conquering the entrepreneurial world. Here is your host, André Brisson.
Hey there, it's André, the Impulsive Thinker. I really enjoy talking to Dan Rogers. Just the way he perceives the world in different ways, against the norm. I love challenging the norm, and his norm to me is very, it's intriguing, and there's a lot of validity to it. I don't want to use the word truth to it, but validity. And we talked about, how just to be awesome and making mistakes is good. Just be awesome, is just as an intentional word. So intentional growth can only happen if it's intentional. And we talked a lot about what he calls his intentional review of his thinking, where he figured out what not to do and developed his 9 restraints, which we'll have in the show notes for download. And then what did my actions affect my thinking? I thought that's a very different point of view, and that mistakes gets transformed into learning if you have the right mindset. And we talked about his concept of what he calls intentional review of his thinking. And he brought up I guess he was listening to what I was saying in the past, but the mirror check. And I had a short there almost a year ago, but I just want to probably go a little more in depth or review it again. The mirror check. You can't lie to yourself. I don't care what you do. If you can lie to yourself, I think there's a bigger problem, and you're definitely not being you. But what I discovered, and I've got quite a few other people who tried this out, is look in the mirror into your eyes and try to lie to yourself. If you say something like, I'm happy with how things are going, or I'm happy how I handled that problem, and then all of a sudden you look away, you can't keep eye contact after making a statement, that is a lie. You cannot lie to yourself and maintain eye contact. Try that. So if you want to be true to yourself and real with yourself and truly be honest with yourself, do this mirror check. Because when I left my first and only engineering job and started Jade Engineers, there's a lot of things those last few years I did not like. I didn't realize I was being gaslit. I didn't realize I was being manipulated. And I didn't realize at the time that my skills was no longer required because it was a stable company and they got everything that they wanted that I created for them. And I don't mean created for them in the negative sense. It was my job and my role. But at the time, it was undiagnosed ADHD, so emotional dysregulation was going over. They were gaslighting me. They were manipulating me. When I first got there at that job, it was only 2 people in the company, and the owner had a dream, wanted a fabrication shop, wanted to build his own aerial device. And I just took that and run, and I ran. I built it. It was a $50,000 company revenue, and when I left, it was $1.2 million, okay? So I ran with it. I built the place. I got us jobs. I got into the fabrication. I learned a lot, and it was great. And that really satisfied my undiagnosed ADHD. It was something new, novel. It was something always urgent. So the last couple of years was bad. I was blowing up. I was having temper tantrums, really, really bad. Now, I was being gaslit. I was being manipulated. I didn't know what was going on, but at the same time, I have some responsibility staying there. Like, yes, gaslighting is not proper. It's not wrong, but it still takes 2 to tango. So me staying there aggravated that, is the point I'm trying to make. So when I left that company to start Jade Engineers, I sat down and I kind of did my own intentional review of my thinking, but it was more about my behaviors. And I didn't like how in that situation I exploded. And I started seeing a pattern of when I exploded emotionally. I also identified areas that we got screwed by customers. I also identified areas that problems and projects went astray. So what I was doing, I was creating things not to do, but I was making aware of the end result and working back from that end result and working back to the trigger. Not just it kind of was the scenario. I went back until I couldn't go back anymore. So I was identifying the trigger. So reality is we're all going to blow up one day. Now, I was doing it regularly. So how can I reduce that percentage down from 100% to maybe 10%, 15%? Because we're all going to get there. But for me, I was identifying those triggers and those symptoms. So I had early warnings of I'm going down the path to a behavior I don't like in myself. So I can start avoiding it. And a lot of it was dealing with certain customers, dealing with certain staff at the time. Get rid of those problems and will never occur again. The project going astray was there wasn't enough communication or there was too much freedom. I found out all that stuff so that I can avoid it. And in my new company, I can create all the systems and structures so that people won't repeat that. Now, with the behavioral part, I really had to look in the mirror. And it was very, very difficult to admit the behaviors and the mindsets I had that were not acceptable to others and then to me. It's very tough to admit that you suck at certain things. But for me to be successful, I decided for me to be successful, I can't run a company, I can't build a company on exploding all the time. So I did that mirror check. I intentionally reviewed my thinking and my behaviors. And I came out, Dan came out with 9 restraints. I just came out with a bunch of things to avoid, right? And like he says, what not to do. And I think that's a better point of view to look at things is what not to do in the future versus what should I do in the future to be successful. What to avoid based on your past and create those rules to avoid that. Now, if you're going to run into new problems and everything too, and that is okay because that is learning. You're going to find a mistake. The thing is, it's a new mistake. It's a new learning. You went a different path because you avoided all the usual mistakes. So every time you find a new mistake or a new obstacle, that's growth because you've gone beyond where you were before and you're finding new challenges and struggles. Get past there. As long as you're finding new struggles, new mistakes, and new obstacles, you are growing and you're moving forward. You're not staying there doing nothing. And, and like Dan said, I thought that was a really good quote. It was, I survived my mistakes. I survived my mistakes. I guarantee you have survived your mistakes. That is because of the mindset. I guarantee you, the listener, if you're listening to this and you're a regular listener, it's because you transform mistakes into learning. And that's the key mindset difference of successful entrepreneurs. And don't believe what everyone says that I've never made mistakes. I never had challenges. I'm just really great. I'm successful. All the successful entrepreneurs that have been in it for a long time have found many, many ways to fail, but they also found many, many ways to be successful because the next success was based on that past mistake or failure. And like we were talking about society, you're not supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to be perfect, smart, and 100% on all the exams. No. The successful people in real life make mistakes, transform them into learnings, and moves forward and doesn't stop. People who sit there and try to avoid mistakes, it's, you're stagnant, you're not moving over. And I'm not, don't get me wrong. We need to I'm not saying the resistant quick starts do this all the time. They don't. Even resistant quick start will move forward. They will try to minimize chaos, but they're still going to move forward based on that learning that they had of the past mistake. So being stuck on trying to perfect everything won't move you forward. And like Dan said, fail forward, go down, make mistakes at full speed. As long as you got clarity, you understand the risks, and you got some sort of compensating move forward because mistakes are inevitable. They will occur. So either I sit here for 2 years trying to reduce my mistakes and then find out the same mistakes anyways 2 years later, or I just start with my basic competency for the next step and just learn as I go. Gets us moving. So again, I really like this. Just be awesome, be intentional, and just think about your thinking. Do that mirror check. See what needs to be corrected so you can identify your triggers. We all have a bad side to us. Like Prince says, you got the shadow self and shadow behaviors. They're there with you. But the key is when you're in those shadow behaviors, how do you get quickly out? Or if you get into those situations, how can you get quickly out? Come up with that awareness helps you come up with strategies to get it. We're all going to get in there. Don't say you'll never do it again. That's a lie. The key is how quickly to get out. Thanks again for listening, and I appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again. Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Impulsive Thinker podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, rate, and review the show. It helps us get discovered by listeners like you. If you can share it with at least 2 other people, that'll be greatly appreciated. I want to gift you the Shit List. It's a weekly planning tool that I developed to plan my week and focus my time. You can find it at our website at tacticalbts.com. That is tacticalbts.com. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Impulsive Thinker podcast. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for the show, please visit theimpulsivethinker.com. The Impulsive Thinker podcast is produced by Tactical Breakthroughs and hosted by André. Remember, ADHD is only a part of you, not all of you.